Coming in at 13.1 ounces is the Zpacks Pivot Solo one-person tent, the ultimate tent for those looking to save weight and maximize living space. Let's find out. I'm gonna tell you 3 things I like about this tent, 3 things I don't, and give you my final verdict. But before we do that, I wanna show you how I set it up. So fortunately, Zpacks provides instructions on their website because you know they can be a little finicky to figure out which end to set first and how to get it guyed out correctly. And getting a good pitch is very important for a tent like this. So I'm gonna set it up, show you how I do it based on the instructions provided by Zpacks. You can see how long it takes. If that's not something you want to see, just skip ahead and I'll tell you the 3 things I like, the 3 things I don't, and my final verdict. All right, let's get this tent set up. Trekking pole, 8 stakes. Comes in a nice Dyneema bag. I'm also utilizing the carbon fiber 32-inch tent pole. Throw that down. That's all set up. Now let's take a look at the tent. I can show you how good a job I did or didn't do. I'm not the best at setting these tents up. I always seem to do a mediocre job, but I would sleep in that. And if it started raining tonight, I think I'd be all right. The pitch was definitely not perfect, but it'll work. So I'll show you what I don't like about the pitch. There's a few things that I think are a little bit unique and maybe strange for this tent. I'm not gonna show them as problems, but I just wanna highlight them. And you can determine whether it's user error because I'm not very good at setting up the tent, or whether it's a design flaw of the tent itself. So check it out. Like all trekking pole tents, there's just a little bit of give, particularly in an area like this, where it's hard to get the tension going across that kind of span. But where I've noticed the issue is more in the back here. And I have tried to figure this out myself, but this back section is just kind of, if you notice, it's just a little bit saggy through here. And it doesn't really seem to matter whether I tie this one tight or that one. I've pulled this corner really tight as well. These are all set at, I think, the right angles, and yet for some reason I'm still getting kind of this saggy section here. Would it affect anything in the rain? No, I don't think so. I think it's still totally fine, and you can see we're pretty low to the ground here as far as getting splashback, but it's just something I noticed that I can't really seem to get right. Now look at the details of these guy lines. They're very nice. You can see they are this very minimalistic cord. It's high visibility. You have the line locks in here. And this one in particular on the front door, it's this unique design where both this top one and the bottom one go together into the same stake. Now what that practically means is you have a lot of tension right here, and it allows for a true one-handed opening and one-handed closing. And I will say that's really slick and really smooth. And this is completely waterproof. These seams are already sealed from the factory. And as far as one-handed operation, this is about as good as it gets. Once I open this here with one hand, this door pretty easily folds up. And it has, like a lot of these tents, it has a very nice system here where you can just use this magnet toggle and it clips it out of the way. Also really cool is if you notice, this is a bug screen here, and it also just very easily, even across the corner, opens with one hand. That's unique. I haven't found too many tents like this that really open. I mean, there's just no tension in here. It's amazing how well that design feature works. So kudos to Zpacks for getting that one right. Let's go ahead and get into the tent. I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. Once again, you can roll the bug net just like the outer door, and it's got those kind of magnet toggles. And you can hang out here in a nice, comfy space. Now, one of the things that's nice about this space is that there is actually lots of space. Well, I'm about 6 feet tall and I'm lying down completely comfortable in here. And it's bigger than a lot of other tents like this, particularly because I just sat straight up from a full lying down position, and I got some clearance here. Now I'm wearing a hat and I don't have it pitched perfectly, but I'm not hitting my head right away, which is one of the problems I find with a lot of these one-person tents, particularly the trekking pole tents. And let me show you how much room I have. So again, I got my head all the way here in the corner. This is about like I'd sleep. And here's my feet down here. And I have a lot of room. You can also sleep both ways with this tent. You can easily switch. And I I actually did that. I think the first night I slept in this, I slept with my head down here and my feet on that end. And that made a little more sense to me because you kind of have, because of this pole right here, would be your 32-inch trekking pole or your 32-inch carbon fiber tent pole. This gives you kind of that elevated side of it. Whereas on the other side down there, you have kind of the slope that's more traditional. And again, you can see I don't have it pitched very great. I'm not happy about that. But the review is what it is. But down here, I have quite a bit of room. And there's room for some gear. A wide pad, no problem. I've used a wide sleeping pad. And you have a lot of room to kind of just hang out. Some other features, like a lot of tents, it has a gear pouch. This one's not particularly great, but you could put a phone in there and you can store something. These bathtub tensioners over here are actually kind of nice because you can just pull on them and they pull the bathtub up a little bit, particularly if you're going to have some rain. It allows you to kind of raise it up so you don't get splashback. And the bug net separates between the outer tent and the floor here, so you retain bug proofness throughout. Same thing down here, one of those bathtub lifters. Helps kind of keep that bathtub from falling over so you don't get any water issues. And here's where that other pole goes, down on to the floor. A little bit of a non-traditional design in this space, but very usable and very functional. You can see the trekking pole fits right up in there and there's a little seat for it. You're supposed to put the hand in up there. And then down here, there's actually a piece of fabric, if I can show you. Down here, there's a piece of fabric that has a hole in it for the pointy end of the trekking pole to go into. So it actually ends up sticking into the ground, providing a lot of stability for the tent. Okay, so now you've seen the tent. I've shown it to you how to set it up, not very well, but at least I showed it to you. And let me tell you now 3 things I like and 3 things I don't like. The first thing I like about this tent is its weight and packability. 13.1 ounces is about as light as they come. Compare this to something like the Durston X-Mid Pro 1, which is 15.5 ounces. Now I know 2 ounces is not a ton of weight, but do we get this much features and this much space in a 1-person tent is truly mind-blowing. I also love that this tent, when you pack it up, it can fit inside my pack horizontally. So not only is it not very heavy, but it's not taking up a lot of volume in my pack. Both of those things are incredibly important for me when I hit the trail. The second thing I love about this tent is the usable space. That's one reason why I got it. Previously, I was using a tarp tent, Aeon Li, which is a 1 trekking pole, 1-person Dyneema ultralight backpacking tent. While that tent was light, it suffered from feeling just like a coffin inside. I couldn't sit up without hitting my head, and if there's condensation in the morning, it meant that I was much closer to where the water was gonna be. This tent, however, gives me a lot of livability without feeling like that coffin. And again, I'm 6 feet tall. A little more space is great, especially when you start going in shoulder season and you have more gear with you, more layers that you want to kind of have around you as you sleep. A lot of livable space in this tent, 10 out of 10 on that feature. The third thing I like about this tent is the pole design. It is a 2 trekking pole tent. However, you can get away with only using 1 trekking pole if you buy the optional 32-inch carbon fiber tent pole. I went ahead and did that. The pole is $20, it weighs less than an ounce, and what that does is it allows me to have a trekking pole available when I want to leave camp in the morning and go climb a peak and come back to a camp still set up. I like to use 1 trekking pole when I go up peaks, particularly on the way down when it's loose and scrambly, and having that option is wonderful. My previous tent was a 1 trekking pole tent, and I love that because if one of the trekking poles broke, you kind of had another one, but I still have that best of both worlds with this tent because I only have to use 1 trekking pole. Now, to be fair, you can do that with a lot of tents. You can do that with a Durston. You can do that with pretty much any tent you want. You can replace a trekking pole with a carbon fiber tent pole. However, out of the gate, this one works really well, and that's a win for me. So let's talk about the things I don't like. Obviously, no tent is perfect, and you're always trying to straddle the line between what you want and the downsides that come with that. It's 1 lever goes up and 1 lever goes down. When it comes to this tent, one thing I don't like is a finicky setup. Now, that's true for all trekking pole tents. It's true for all Dyneema composite fiber single wall tents. That's just the nature of the beast when you don't have a freestanding tent. So I don't want to knock this tent particularly for that. However, I do think because you need 8 stakes and you got to kind of set up the corners, but not this one corner first, it's just something you have to really pay attention to. It's a little finicky. All that to say, the Pivot Solo does require some dialing in. It's one of those tents that you're gonna wanna practice a few times at home before you take it on your first outing. All right, the second thing I don't like about this tent is the stake requirement. It needs eight stakes. That's a lot of stakes, because not only does that mean you have to bring the stakes, which is weight, and that's not counted in the 13.1 ounces, but you got to find ground where you can put 8 stakes in. If you're like me and you go to the High Sierra, that can be a challenge. There's a lot of rocky, pulverized granite that just doesn't have the depth of ground to drive in those stakes. And so you're gonna have to get creative, use the big rock, little rock method, or find other ways to try to keep your tent secure. Every tent has that issue, but the more stakes you need to keep it secure, the more that's an issue. For the most part, I like to bring these MSR Groundhog Minis. These are the perfect stake, in my opinion, for the High Sierra. But bringing 8 of these, not a huge weight penalty. It weighs, you know, this much. But it's one more thing you gotta bring in your pack and you gotta carry. The third thing I don't like about this tent is the price. It retails for $649. That's not cheap. Now, that's not a starter tent, and that's not something you want to buy and regret that you bought right away. If you're like me, you can be a little patient and you can wait for something to come up on the slightly used secondhand market. That's where I got this tent. I didn't pay full price because I'm cheap and I don't like to do that. But that's a steep price. And so that's a downside for a lot of people. If you consider that you'll probably use this tent for a very long time and get a lot of miles out of it, a lot of use out of it, that cost can start to diminish. But if this is something you're only gonna use a few times, or you're not sure you wanna get into a one-person ultralight tent, this is probably not the first place to start. I would not describe this as a entry-level one-person tent. This is a one-person tent for somebody who knows what they want, which levers to go up, which levers to go down, and they're willing to pay a premium to get it. So who's this tent for? Well, if you want the lightest tent possible, it's probably not this one. It might be the Zpacks Solo by Zpacks, comes in a couple ounces lighter. If you want the roomiest tent of this class, it might actually be the Durston X-Mid Pro one person. But if you're looking for a sweet spot between that really lightweight and livability, the Zpacks Pivot Solo tent might just be what you want. This tent does really deliver on all that it promises. For you, it's really about what you want. What levers do you want up? What levers do you want down? And what's important to you? If you want that sweet spot between weight and livability, this is certainly a tent to check out.